Hello, and welcome to the Purple Rock podcast. I am your host for this Cook Islands rewatch match. With me, as always, is Emma. Joining us is special guest star Andy. And we have a with credit this week. Mark is here. How's everyone doing? We got a full house.
I mean, I love a with and credit, so I'm excited.
Special credit. This is actually my first time watching Survivor in 10 months, so I'm excited to get back into it.
Like, you probably should have watched the episodes before this week as well.
Oh, yeah. I did that
too. Nope,
just
Mark watched
right in.
Mark just jumped right in with this episode. Like, he just finished literally 5 minutes before and hopped on the podcast.
Why do they hate Candace so much?
So we're talking about only one episode this week. It is the final episode before the merge. Spoiler, because we're a spoiler podcast this week. And the big theme this week is, there's one tribe that we're rooting for and keeps doing well. And there's one tribe that we're rooting against and they keep falling flat on their face. So, the first instance of that was that reward challenge. That was pretty satisfying to watch, right?
Oh, it was just, especially seeing like Candace and Adam being like, oh, why are they doing it wrong? And then it's their turn and Adam can't do it either. And just feckless, as has once been a word in a different Survivor season. They could not get it done. And the Aitus crushed it.
Yeah, the symbolism was just chef's kiss. Perfect. One team digging themselves in a hole.
Season, right?
Yeah.
And why we like it so much is that, one side is fun and good and pure and great. And the other ones also, not only do they fail, but they bicker and, they don't support each other. It's just, so it's
they
perfect.
Can't remember what direction they're supposed to dig.
Yeah, they roll their eyes like they hate each other, even if it's not true. That is what's being broadcast to us through the reward, through the story. And then they don't know it's going to work out this way, but it's even better. Like last week I said, we get the four together and it's fun. And then they meet each other and combine and see each other as children and human beings. This week, now they get the cultural reward. Imagine if Raro had gone on that reward.
For several reasons. Imagine if Raro had gone on that reward.
Oh, yeah.
The
optics
would not have been good. Especially, we've been seeing a lot of similar images due to all of the controversy about the royal family. So
imagine if they only had 4 seats and they had to choose which Raros, and I think we know how that would have gone.
Yep.
Well, 3 out of the 4, but
yeah. But no. It is just fun to watch them kind of fall apart and bicker in these challenges. Like Emma was saying, you have Adam, who's just taking out all the frustrations he has with Penner's presence, and yelling at him to do it right. And then he gets out there and he's doing it worse. And it's like, why can't they do this right? And then he's out there and then he does it bad. And then Penner goes back out there and then he's and then he's complaining about Penner doing it badly again. It's just complete lack of self-awareness. They just make really good villains.
Frankly, I am shocked that you would imply Adam cannot look inward and see his own flaws.
We also get once again an example of them not valuing immunity enough. If they were really serious about winning immunity, which all at this point it should take is 1 immunity and that other tribe will never matter.
Mm-hmm.
Now maybe they think that they won't even need 1, but seriously, win 1, that's 3 people. It's not going to be a thing. Save all your best. Rebecca should have been doing this challenge.
Yeah.
But no, they're like, we really want that reward.
It made no sense to me.
What's crazy is this actually was slightly better than how they split it up last time. At least they saved Nate for immunity. But it's just really, it should have been there's no swimming in this challenge. Maybe
there's not a lot of physical activity at all. You can send your weakest people out there to dig.
Yeah, no, all 3 dudes should have sat. Or maybe 2 of them plus Parvati, or Candace is actually probably the better challenge of the 2. Although she gets to spend most of her time off
Parvati's a better swimmer.
Yeah, Parvati's a better swimmer.
This isn't a swimming challenge.
But they didn't know that.
Right, yeah. But I'm saying
Well, they know that this is not, so saving her for the end. Yeah. But yeah, it should have just been your weakest. And if you lose, whatever, it's about immunity. That's what's important. But they don't do that because they're dumb, which is the other beautiful thing. Like, this isn't just losing because one team has Ozzy and one doesn't. This is one team can work together and, think things through, and the other team hates each other. And
yeah, and let's just jump into the immunity, because it's the same conversation, basically, because it's the same challenge conversation, like Andy's saying, it's just they're making poor decisions. Ozzy is a force multiplier. It's definitely true, especially in a swimming challenge. Like, Ozzy makes a huge difference, but the rest of Aitu is holding their own. They're holding those leads, and Raro is just making mistakes in their strategy.
Well, yeah, because what's funny about that is, obviously starting with Ozzy for that swimming is such a, makes it so defeatist for the other side, because by the time a second person goes, they've almost been lapped.
Yeah, their best swimmer is out there, and it doesn't matter. You can't hang, Nate.
But they do start to even it a little bit, because Parvati does do pretty well, and Becky and Sundar aren't maybe the strongest in the water, but they do that puzzle so fast that it does not matter. Puzzle, but they solve the thing that needs to be solved. I don't know what we but they get that. Before, they weren't even that far ahead at that point, but they still get it done before Raro's even out of the water.
No, I think they actually had got out of the water. This was by far the closest of these recent immunity challenges, because Raro wasn't that far behind by the end. When, if you think about it, the difference might have been, as Andy suggested, had they had Adam in this challenge instead of Rebecca, or I don't know if Adam was.
Adam did not do the challenge. I don't believe it was Jonathan. Jonathan's the person who went twice.
That's right.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, had they just had someone instead of Rebecca, Rebecca is their weakest swimmer from what we have seen.
Yes.
That really could have made the difference in this challenge. But again, they overvalued reward, just like they did last week, because they just they don't seem to take this seriously, despite the fact they keep losing. They don't
work well together. Even at camp, you notice that they don't really gel very well. Except for the 4 Caucasians. But
well, actually, honestly, even that, it's really just Penner catching a lot of fish and be like, "Please like me," and then Candace and Adam being
canoodling,
disgusting.
We don't want to see any of that crap on TV.
That oh, let me kiss the boo-boo. Oh, I think I hurt my lip too. You are 23 years old. You are too old for that nonsense. 23 is young, but it is too old for that bullshit.
Yeah, that is middle school flirting right there.
Yeah,
that is.
It's full on summer camp vibes, which a lot of times Survivor devolves into other ways emotionally, especially when people just clearly are reliving high school trauma and that. But that's what this is. They literally might have friendship bracelets. That is a thing that happens in Survivor. But and that's what's going on. And I think Candace just totally went back to that place. Maybe school is tough. Maybe it was really nice to have something simple in her life. She has spoken, to her credit, about how embarrassing it was to kind of relive this in the situation she'd find herself in later. And that's what it is. And it's gross, but it works because it makes us dislike them more. And
question,
their failure
though, Andy,
better.
Did you mean to say something simple or someone simple?
Two things.
Just
one thing, really. It's the same.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Two things.
That reminds me of that.
Yeah,
but reminds me of the golden line that Yul said at the end of the reward is strategy and revenge. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Because we had another great moment where they're just okay, 1, 2, 3. Candace.
Yeah, no, that's as close as you're going to get to Yul Kwan trash talk, and it's accurate. Yeah, it is the best decision.
It's revenge, but it's also advantageous to my personal position in the game, for she has already gone to Exile Island, so would have to choose either her or Adam. So we might as well choose the one that affected me personally. It's
only a 43 Penner has also gone there too. They could have said
but
Yeah.
I mean, this was all hypothetical. I don't think we really need to get bogged down in the details, Matthew.
No, we don't.
It's good team building exercise. It makes us feel good. That is also a good strategic value. No, I'm sure Yul has done the math on that. As evil as math can be.
All math teachers are evil.
I had a thought about the challenge. There's going to be a lot of talk in this episode and future episodes about the ways that the show itself might be, putting their thumb on the scale in order to prevent the death of the entire series. Yeah. So we're going to talk about that with this episode, but a simple way to do that is simply putting challenges where that like one tribe is smart and one tribe is dumb, and giving them like study material. Like it could have been that simple that because there's going to be conspiracy theory about that, but like that's the kind of show rigging that I've always believed in. I do feel like there is like they plan out their challenges, but they have to give themselves wiggle room in terms of days, because if there's a friggin' rainstorm, you can't do certain challenges, right? So it could have just been as simple as like, oh god, we can't let this happen, what do? It's like, yeah, let's just bring it down to smarts. Let's bring it down to studying and memory. And I think we got this one in the bag, because while it did, as Matt says, it was a little closer in terms of Raro was at least at that obstacle. We don't know how long it would have taken them.
No, we don't.
Parvati and her pneumatics was not competing in that challenge. So
they couldn't even get the compass puzzle right. So I don't know if that entirely works for this episode, at least.
That's what I'm saying.
They weren't going to win that challenge regardless.
Yeah, so that could be the show being like, yeah, we're going to keep those 4 around, and I know how.
Right, and I don't think of that as like nefarious. Like the show isn't like stepping in and interfering. It's just kind of moving things to where it might make it more interesting, if you would. I mean, and right, that memorization, like, we don't know how useful that was, or not. Like, we don't know if they were able to like bring that note with them or not. I don't think they were, but I mean, maybe it wasn't that big a deal, but maybe it did help them in a little bit. I think it helped a lot more in the compass one, because they put together that end part of it really quick.
Yeah. I mean, all challenges are going to help somebody, because some people are good at things and some people aren't. It's a mistake to try to expect challenges to be like equally easy for all people. That's where you get number this 1 to 50. That's where you get reach into a ball and grab a marble. Otherwise, I'm sorry, better people are going to do better at things that they're good at. But they still have to do it. And that's why I don't see it as necessarily terribly unfair, because Raro could have also just swam a little better and got to that puzzle, untied things a little faster. Maybe they would have a chance, but I like my odds of Team Yul, Becky, Sundra, Ozzy on this one.
Right. So let me ask you guys a question. Do you think that Aitu's dominance, they've now won 4 challenges in a row, while vastly outnumbered, it's not just Ozzy, is it?
No.
I mean, the swimming, a lot of the physical stuff definitely is, but like Andy was saying, they're smarter. I think though, in terms of really viewing it as dominant, like he's the most visible thing, where you see him outpace Nate by so much, and like Nate is no slouch, but Ozzy is just whoop.
Yeah, we saw it with JT as well. It's right. Like Secretariat pulling away, but no, I don't think it's just that, because these are team aspects. There are certain, the show forces it so that, not everybody can do it. And we don't get a situation like later in Micronesia where Ozzy does almost all of the challenge for his tribe. Like everybody still had their turn. He just took the hardest part of it. So I think teamwork is actually a big part of it.
Right. And actually last week in the glass bottom boat challenge, we forgot to talk about this, but Yul's the one that hacked that challenge, because he, instead of using the bottom of the boat to sight, he was using the actual place where he dropped the cannonball.
And Becky was valuable in telling him, shut the fuck up and don't let them hear.
Exactly. So that wasn't Ozzy winning that. That was Yul and Becky right there.
Becky's always there. Yul's very important partner. Actually, speaking of teamwork, another thing that does refer to Ozzy though is in that reward challenge again that we were talking about, how Adam is like berating Jonathan and stuff like that, is you see you see Ozzy being like, yeah, come on guys, like he's like cheering them, you got it, like, and douchebag Ozzy that we always talk about is like, cheering and like being encouraging, whereas Adam's like, oh, why haven't you pulled, like, even once they found it, it's like, oh, why haven't you pulled it out yet? And then they do, I'm like, that's a big ass trunk, man.
It's still stuck under there, even if we know where it is. We have to do more.
It's the rectangle. You gotta like build out and like use your legs and do this. And they're like, well, we're trying not to bear. It's like Penner's like, I don't want to bear it with it. And then cut to Prost being like, Jenny, pour sand onto the pile.
Yeah, I mean the simple act of like waiting until one team has touched the mat before they go. Right. Like again, the smarts of Aitu, the cooperation, the fact that everybody's pulling for one another, it helps. But I'm also like, the team with LeBron James tends to do better than even the teams that are like all friends. Right. It just helps when LeBron is both a team builder and Ozzy is that situation. Should also be noted that Yule is a pretty good combination of things. Becky, despite what Cowboy thought, is I think also really valuable to these things. So.
No, I know. I mean, I think Becky and Sundra are actually pretty solid. It just gets overshadowed by the fact that that Ozzy's amazing and Yule's pretty good. Like, it's actually hard to assess like how good Yule is because he's always with Ozzy. So, Ozzy's really kicking ass, and like Yule's probably just as good as anyone on the other tribe. If not maybe even better than some of them. But I think Becky and Sundra are easily holding their own in most of these things. They're not dead weight. And we see the problem with like someone who doesn't hold their own. Rebecca's kind of let them down now, like 2 episodes in a row, and and that's something that that could. Might not have made a difference last episode. I think it did that. I think it could have this episode.
Yeah, I would say Becky and Sundra are not at the level of like Candace, maybe, especially in that one challenge where Candace really kicked ass, but they are not a Rebecca at all. They're replacement level, I'm sure. I mean, and again, it's hard to really judge against anyone when you just have Ozzy getting them such a head start. So it's like, I don't know.
But last week they fit in the barrel really well. Like they had that role of
They sure did. Although at one point Becky's head was like fully out of it. I'm like, that is terrifying.
Here's the thing, but this episode, everyone had to swim all the way out there. So if one of them was really bad, it would have shown up in this episode, and that could have made a huge difference.
I mean, I do think that's why you see them get caught up.
Come back. Sundra did struggle like a little bit, and she bled a little bit of time, but it's nice to have Ozzy to build out the big lead to begin with.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. Like, but it wasn't like really kind of disastrously bad, and I think there is a difference there.
I love that we're just like getting deep on challenges.
Well, I mean, like it's because here's the thing: it's all part of it's all part of the Aitu versus Raro stuff, right? Yeah. Because and that's what this season's all about, or at least what this pre-merge is about. And
so honestly, was only half joking. That's why I love the season. I really cared about the challenges.
Yes.
Go for every moment counts because I can't. I need these people to win because I love them. But more importantly, I can't have those people win. Mm-hmm. And so, even challenges, part of the Survivor experience that often is just like kind of there for me, is like really important to me when I'm first watching it. Less so now because I know who's going to win. But still, fun to watch, and it's fun to watch the other side fall on their asses all the time, constantly screwing up, constantly, criticizing each other from the bench. It's great. I love it. It's great.
And it's not just the narrative. Like, these are really fun challenges they've been having lately. Like, I miss this era of Survivor where they were really creative with the challenge department, where now it's the same 10 things over and over. Here you have the ship thing, you've got the compass, like a lot of just inventive uses of the theme. So I've been appreciating that.
I think they could end with a better challenge than spending out bounty the one time, but the rest of that challenge is really good. I agree. This is, these are fun challenges, but I think you also get to see the personalities of these two tribes in the challenges in a way that kind of enhances both the underdog story and kind of why we dislike the people with all the numbers. Like we like the side where Ozzy's rooting for his teammates. We don't like the side where they're criticizing each other in the middle of a challenge, and that makes a huge difference. And that's like one of like, and you see that not just in the challenges, but you see that all the time throughout camp. And that's why we're rooting for these underdogs. It's not just that they're down in numbers, they're likable, and the other side isn't.
Another reason why we have to talk about challenges is because that's about all we can talk about when in regards to why like Rebecca is the first target, because she is so invisible.
Oh my God. How many lines did she like get? I want to see like the Edgic breakdown of Rebecca this I don't actually want to see the Edgic breakdown.
Like, please
season.
don't send that to me.
I legit don't remember a moment since like the opening, like the first episode when it's like her and Sandra bonding over being from Queens. I suspect there have been some, but I know this episode there was not. She, unless I like blinked and missed something, she did not speak until Jeff directly addressed her in tribal council. And why that really stood out for me is that includes a scene that was about her tribe talking to her. She wasn't just like in a conversation, they were specifically talking to her to prep her, and I swear to God she said nothing.
I don't even remember that scene from the premiere. Like, I didn't really remember much of her going into this. Granted, it's been, 15 years? But I still don't remember anything about her even after I've watched the show. So, just one of those sad
Yeah, I mean, she didn't even get final words, man.
Nope.
Nope.
Right.
I had to laugh about it. And of course, this is what happens.
Of course Rebecca didn't get final words.
Yeah.
But,
and
yeah,
like,
just,
and like, I know we go into this sort of later, but like, watching with my husband, like, who again has seen a few seasons at this point, but certainly isn't like hearing us talk about Purple Kelly and stuff like that. He's like, has this woman spoken? Like, has she said a word? Like, was just like, who? And like, I kind of noticed like when I would ask like, oh, what's your opinion about these people? And like, he would just be like, oh yeah, Parvati seems under the radar. And then it would be like, I guess Jenny and Rebecca are too. Like, I know nothing about.
So I think Jenny got more than Rebecca.
For sure.
Absolutely. Because it's hard to get less than Rebecca. Frankly, I think a lot of the people who got voted out before her got more than Rebecca.
Rebecca would kill for Purple Kelly screen time. Like, so like to do the entire idea that like it's a modern invention that like editors leave people out of the edit. No, like this was her episode. And again, she didn't speak in a scene that was dedicated to people talking to her. And maybe she was pissed. Maybe she was like, I don't need you to teach me how to learn. Thanks. But she didn't say anything. And I don't think it's just an edit, because when they're discussing why, her instead of Jonathan, obviously her challenge failure is the biggest reason. They also mentioned that she doesn't really do much around camp, in comparison to what Jonathan's doing. That's understandable, but just in general, they say that she doesn't really even talk much around camp. So like, I think, while I'm sure she said more than what we saw, it would be impossible not to. They do force you to talk to them. I think it's probably accurate that she just really wasn't much of a presence on that tribe.
They stopped for bringing her for confessionals? So like,
hey, we're good, Rebecca. We
didn't have anything for this episode.
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
Oh man, that would be.
She even had the self-awareness that she was bad, though.
Maybe, I mean, look, I'll say this. Maybe she saw the writing on the wall in that tribe, and she's like, I'm not putting up with this shit. I'm out.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it was stunning how invisible. Like, we talked last podcast, like the last season we covered Pearl Islands, about like how invisible Dara was. Dara is a superstar compared to Rebecca. Now, obviously, post-merge versus pre-merge, but I can't think of somebody who has been as invisible, because why would you think of somebody who has been that invisible? I don't plan on thinking about Rebecca much more after this episode.
So you also brought up something else, which is Jonathan Penner is working his butt off around camp in his desperation to stick around. This seemed to actually work. Is that why they kept Penner around?
It's a reason.
Yeah, it's at least part of why. It's maybe why they think they kept Penner around.
He's doing good work. He's also, pulling the white card of culturally appropriating Ozzy's shtick. I'm just like, let me just fish. for everybody all the time.
Yeah, well, and also, like he would go fishing with Ozzy, and now Ozzy's not there, so he's doing it instead. I would love to know how much longer it takes for him to bring back all those fish versus Ozzy.
Probably like all day versus 1 hour, but
right. But Raro doesn't know any better because there's not a single, I mean, I guess Candace, but like fuck her. And she's on Exile Island.
Yeah, she's on Exile. She ain't around.
So she doesn't know.
She doesn't know how long it takes Jonathan. Yeah.
They voted out all the Hispanic people, so no one knows what Ozzy's like. So they're like, wow, all of these fish, like we just hope, we've just been busy hoping an octopus gloms onto one of our legs and call that a day.
Yeah, I mean, and then they try to justify it at Tribal, and it's like, well, some of us go clamming, and some of us do that, and then Jonathan's bringing in 20 fish.
Going
especially
clamming,
like when they say
clams.
Going clamming, these are not the modern like Fiji clams. These are that are like gigantic. Or Palau had that too, but you guys didn't just watch it, and I did. But yeah, like these are just clams. Like the ones on like now, you get like one clam, and you're like, we're good.
We're eating good tonight, folks.
Yeah.
But that's not. They're just here. We found some morsels for you.
I do think that it was a motivation for keeping Jonathan around, and it just kind of speaks to what a kind of tribe Raro is, because in most Survivor seasons, even at this point in the development of Survivor, people would be like, yeah, it's nice that you're doing the chores around camp, but I'm not going to keep you for that. I'm not going to change my game. But this tribe is so fucking lazy that like, almost like they're like, he'll do everything and we don't have to do anything. And all it will cost us is somebody we don't care about anyway. Yeah, okay. That can be the balance.
Also, like, speaking of how they think about things, they voted someone out based on challenge strengths, and the jury has started. Like, I know they don't know when the merge is going to happen, but like the jury has started already.
Yeah. It's got to be any day now, right?
Maybe it's soon.
Any day now.
Soon.
Hopefully. But I think this is early enough that like challenge strength is an actual like good thing too, or providing.
Sure.
Like I don't think we're to the point where providing is completely irrelevant. Yeah.
Well, I'll say.
No, I mean that's why Ozzy got to last until they mutinied, and then they needed him.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, if you're doing it for challenge strength, another way you could benefit your challenge prowess is a better distribution of resources. So they don't seem to care about it then when, and maybe it's just the prospect of food was there. That is more important to me, which I believe in their cases, because to further my thesis, they are a dumb tribe. And so it totally makes sense that would go in. But yeah, like I do think that could be a reason why they went into tribal council deciding, you know what, yeah, let's get rid of Rebecca. She's only in really part of our plans in name only. Jonathan could just as easily be in that part of our plans. And we can continue to eat. It's not the reason why he survived the second vote.
No, right. That's the one where I think your eyebrows kind of raise a little bit. So let's talk about it. Why Jenny?
Well, what's interesting that I noticed is it seemed like why Jenny, the way they presented it in the episode, is that she wants to target Candace, which is funny because like first it was like Jonathan, and then Adam's like, and then Candace next, and then it was like all focused on Candace. I'm like, you also don't like Jonathan. but
that's a given.
Yeah, but what was confusing to me is I looked at when I was writing the breakdown for this podcast, I was like double checking, that I wasn't mixing up certain episodes and stuff, and the Survivor Wiki, or maybe even real Wikipedia, because I looked at both, said that it was because, which is like something we heard when they thought about voting for her, that they were worried she was going to go back to Becky and Yule. And I'm like, they did not say that. And so I think that's just whoever wrote that Wiki article. But I was just like, I don't think that's what happened.
No, I don't think that's what happened.
But I think that's kind of important to note, because I think maybe when you hear people talk about this season, that might be the narrative because they haven't seen it in a while, so they look it up. and like it did get said earlier, so then you're like, oh, that's why. And because what we're gonna discuss about maybe why, like that makes that look even worse.
Yeah, here's the thing.
I have a question. Did they even deliberate during that second vote?
No.
I know they didn't show it.
No, they did. They had to vote. They had to vote right away, and this is before the era where you just stand up and talk to other people about who you're going to vote.
JT had yet to change the game, oddly enough, during Game Changers.
He changed the game during Game Changers. But here's the thing about it. The justification that Jenny was going to go back to Yul and Becky is obviously made up, and we'll talk about why in a second. But it's the reason why I think people think it is because that was lobbed at Brad, and I think was accurate for Brad. Like, yes. That accusation, and Brad has said in postgame, like, yeah, I probably would have gone back, which you can take with a grain of salt. But I think it was more accurate for him. But Jenny all along has been like, me and Brad don't really see eye to eye, and she seems to really fit in with that tribe. Mm-hmm. So why?
She talks about their five a lot, right. And like, I guess we have to get rid of Rebecca, one of our group, like, seems very more in tune to that.
So let's actually talk about why Jenny then. What's the real reason why? Andy, tee us up.
Before we get into the most obvious, maybe the Occam's razor why, there is something to the reasons given by the people, the storyline provided by the show. That, frankly, the reason isn't intertwined. It isn't like, it is intertwined with the Occam's razor.
Right.
Is that Jenny, at some point down the line, will want Candace eliminated.
Yes.
Jonathan does not. It's Parvati does not. Adam does not. They are the people who voted for Jenny. So this is
Candace does not.
Yeah, Candace, yes, absolutely Candace does not. So this is a move to protect Candace, the person who is of higher value to them than Jenny. I think that's all true, because the complications of these is that it can be many things. Why is Candace more important to them than is Jenny? And that gets into the bigger thing. And frankly, why Jenny should have probably been a little more concerned about letting go of Rebecca and, I believe Stephanie before that. Although that was, or Brad before that. And then he's not. It's like, there's a balance of power shifting here that somehow just happens. It's just a thing. It's not a real. It happens a lot, and it's never. And for the people, it's often never even thought of like, I want to do this because I want to be around my fellow whites.
Right, like Penner, can be like, well, I stepped off for Candace. Candace is like, I'm Candace. Adam is like, I would like to continue making out with Candace. Like, I think the only person who even had a decision to make there is Parvati, because she's relatively close to Jenny and Candace.
Yeah,
right.
And she doesn't even know. That's the other thing about this is everybody's just voting their interest. They haven't had time. Now, I do believe there's probably been conversations about order, right? Especially once Rebecca is, Jonathan is left ahead of Rebecca in the order, and it's like, okay, yeah, Jonathan next. But what if, because, it's happening, it's being discussed, this, need that we're going to have to deal with Jenny down the line. But, that those four all just know, okay, let's get rid of Jenny instead of Jonathan. And that Nate doesn't know that. Like, you'd have to be fool to think it's a complete coincidence. Like, so.
But do they also think that Candace is a better athlete than Jenny? Like, I'm absolutely not.
I mean, probably she is.
But that's not why. That's the reason for the Rebecca vote. But that's not why they're making this Candace vote. And I mean, right, no, and you're right. There's a lot of reasons that go into this. It's a lot of intertwined things. You have a lot of plausible deniability behind your decision making here. Frankly, a lot of your decision making is probably largely unconscious. But the fact of the matter is that Jonathan is someone who some people in your tribe, some people in your core alliance have been saying, you cannot trust this person. And Jenny is someone who has been nothing but trustworthy to you. And if you're down to 5-4, what you shouldn't be you should be thinking about, what is the most trustworthy person to me? But they're not thinking about that. They're thinking about protecting one of their own, and one of their own happens to be Candace, who wasn't one of their own until recently, again, anyway.
Yeah, there's always a reason, right? you move out of
always
this
a reason.
neighborhood into the cushier neighborhood for the schools, and it's safer for my family. And you just so happen to push out certain types of current residents to form that community. That's what happened this season. Just in a stunning turn of events, it doesn't work out.
When Jonathan and Candace moved in, that was a very diverse tribe.
Yeah, it
was a diverse neighborhood.
It was. And then suddenly
even when they were there, it was even. It was 50-50. You know, even in the sense that it like 50%, like what they're planning on casting now is like 50% white, 50% BIPOC. But it's like also the other side, you know, aren't all in the same grouping and stuff, and so you can't lump people together and yada yada.
You know, one interesting thing is that Jenny's really the first person this season to bring up something that we see brought up all the time in Survivor, which is that you got to break up the couple. You got to break up the showmance. It doesn't really come up with regard to Candace and Adam before this. Now, probably that's because they're not on the same tribe for most of the season. But then when they are in the same tribe, that never comes up. The first vote is between Penner and Brad. And it doesn't seem like breaking up Candace and Adam is even brought up until right before this vote. And even then, it's not really brought up now. It's brought up like for the future.
Yeah, honestly, that's a bad look on Jenny and the other participants on that she, like, we see her have the conversation with Adam about how we've got to protect the original 5. You really think
that was
he's gonna vote out his side piece? Like, if you don't know that you've been usurped. Oh yeah, I guess there's no side. Well, I guess it wasn't on their side. She is a side to their alliance. Right, But like, she stepped off a fucking mat and threw away her game to be here. There is no more glaring a red light. Yet they're all like, "No, that's cool," because they're a dumb tribe. It's all just about hangs and vibes.
It's a vacation.
And like, what should have happened is, frankly, Jonathan shouldn't have been the biggest threat. It should have been like, oh fuck, I guess Adam isn't with us. You should have given him an ultimatum right then. You vote her out now, or it's you, buddy. But no, they were just like, oh no, I'm sure once he's done with her, he'll definitely go to the final 4 with me. That's not happening. You know, racism or no, you have to know that you've been usurped, at least in Adam's plans.
You know, and the funny thing was, had they voted out Penner last week, they probably wouldn't be in this position now, because there would have been one less person to vote with them, one less person invested in keeping Candace around. So the decision to kind of keep Penner around is not just a bad decision because because you're keeping around someone whose loyalty you can't be sure of, but it's also you're keeping around someone who's loyal to someone who is taking your place in the game.
And he's already expressed regret about jumping anyway.
Yeah, I mean, not to them, but because he's not that much of a moron. But like, he also has to stay. You know, he has to stay. Like Adam is tied to Candace because they're like hooking up, and Penner is because he has to. Like, what else is he gonna do? You know, he's not like, if they had tried to swing him to their side, maybe, but that doesn't happen. So why would what motivation does Jonathan have to turn on Candace? And especially, like, that vote is not really, it's not Jenny or Candace, it's Jenny or Jonathan. So,
totally. Yeah.
And it's down the line Candace. So
right. You know, this is actually kind of like,
actually, sorry, before we move on, I just want to say they choose not to vote Jonathan because they're like, Jonathan will never want to turn on Candace.
Right. Yes. No, exactly.
Yeah, we have to get rid of Jenny now to protect Candace and our alliance.
Adam's entire rationale for keeping Penner in the game is all about Candace. Now, I don't know if that's the way he sold it to other people, but once he gets Penner through that first vote, then he knows he has enough votes to keep Candace around no matter what happens. What I was going to say was, this is actually kind of like the beginning of Penner's, like, redemption tour. Like, suddenly, Penner last episode is coming off like the biggest idiot. He's just, just a complete, like, he betrayed his tribe. He immediately, he's like, well, I screwed this up. He's, every conversation he starts is incredibly awkward. And then this episode, like, compared to everyone else on his tribe, like, he's looking pretty good all of a sudden, and the thoughts he's having, he's keeping to himself because you don't talk about stuff if you're not an idiot. What do you guys think about that idea?
I think not being in charge, or at least assuming that he has some level of in chargeness, is a great look for Jonathan Penner. And I think we'll bore out every season he's there. You know, even the beginning of Micronesia, I was Team Penner. But he was in the jackass, and it makes sense why like Sri doesn't go with him, for instance. But once he's now like, he flips the other side, and he's his underdog working hard, and has to like win people over. Suddenly he starts to look good again. It's the same thing here in the first part. I'm the head white male in charge here, and even when he's not being that's the way he's acting. He's acting as though he's the guy, the mastermind, the plans. Flicka has to listen to him and all that, and it turns people off. Here he's got no other move. He's now the outcast. He's now the underdog, and it works better when Penner just doesn't have any level of power.
Yep. Yeah, I think he always works better as like the analyst and the underdog. He can like see things from afar. When he's this close to it, it's a whole lot more challenging for him. And his mutiny mistake also like helps him in future seasons. And this is a point that the person that I've been watching with has pointed out, who's seen Penner's other seasons, but this is the first time watching Cook. She said that he, you can tell in his future seasons that he's more collaborative. Like he realizes he can't make decisions on his own. He always wants buy-in from people. And so this is kind of a way to get buy-in from people. It's like feed them and they'll keep you around. So this is like the genesis of that gameplay move in his later seasons.
I mean, it helped him get just as far as he did in this season in what was it? Philippines. Yeah.
Another one thing that helps, I'll just keep coming back to this the whole way, is now he's on the other side of the shitty people of the season. They're it makes this season so easy to root for. It's just like whatever side Adam's on, I'm gonna be over here and rooting against it. So now Adam's
we'll talk about this more next week, but I think that's even part of his decision-making process, because he sort of what we see how when he talks to Lisa Welchel in Philippines, it's like he knows he's drawing dead.
Totally.
What's a better, who do I want to help?
And he understands narrative, so he can kind of like see how the producers are gonna mold him.
Like a storyteller, that's what he does.
Yeah. So the other thing about Penner, I think that's really kind of present in this episode, is it's fun to see him analyze himself. A lot of survivors are not good at finding their own faults. Penner makes a mistake, and then he's like, man, I really messed up there, didn't I? I don't know if I can fix that. But he talks about like his mistake. And that's something you don't see a lot of on Survivor, because most people on this show don't have that ability at all. And the people that do don't always get that second chance if they mess up. So
You're saying that he has the privilege to make mistakes and then overcome them in life?
That is what I'm saying, yes. Coming back to our earlier theme of this episode.
Before we move away from that, just a couple of things. One is that when Jenny gets like her third vote, I swear to God, it's the fucking white people look. Like just like the look, and like it is really happening.
Like Ozzy post mutiny.
It was just perfect in that respect. And then you guys gave a lot of credit to Cowboy. How could you not? Most influential member of history.
That's right.
For coming up with the ingenious idea of, when you can't vote somebody out, also put votes on somebody else. But not enough credit has been given, and maybe now is the perfect time, because it's the culmination of he was so right about not trusting those white people that if we don't do something now, they're all going to get together and start running things. He didn't need a weird dream to come that across. It's just life experience talk.
He needed life experience.
Yeah. And maybe it's the youth of a lot of these other people. They haven't, they haven't been repeatedly have this shoved in their face for 50 years or however old he was. I guess he was only like
this 45. Is pre-Twitter.
He's
so they
42.
Jeez, okay, I'm sorry, Cowboy.
Well, there's also generational trauma.
Right.
Yeah, it's just because we talked about that with Billy being 36.
Right. Well, that was bizarre.
On the opposite end of it, can I just say that Jenny was 36, and good for her.
Oh yeah, that actually is kind of surprising.
I was going to say the two things that age you are heavy metal and being a refugee, but.
But no, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is if you're really young, sometimes your most recent life experience isn't like the repeated, white privilege. It's not that it's not happening. It's just that, you just have less experience than someone who's lived 20 years longer than you has with it.
But sadly, as Emma just pointed out, Jenny's actually 36, so I'm sure
That's fair.
She's had enough, maybe loan applications turned down or whatever. Goddamn, white people suck.
It's been a bad week.
It's kind of tough.
It's fitting.
Okay.
But show-wise, it's about to get better on that front. But life-wise,
well, not next week. Not next week.
The long game.
The long game will get better.
Yeah, there's the fact that's like, I'll side with you, but as long as you vote out the black guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, when we get to that, there'll be reasons why.
Yeah, we'll talk.
Yeah, no, again, there's always reasons, it's like, well, they're my original tribe.
No, I mean, the reasons are that Nate was extra shitty to John.
There's also that.
Yes.
But let's not get ahead of ourselves, because that's going to be a great episode. So.
Yes.
How
about that pre-merge? Andy, how'd I do there? Was that a good Andy?
That was pretty solid.
Okay.
Look, one of the main criticism of this season is that it's got a boring pre-merge. And obviously, I did a bit of ranting about it last week. Somebody in comments, I'm sorry, I can't remember your name, was like, I think people mean Mutiny. Whatever, fair.
Which I'll know I also sat on the podcast last week.
Yeah, words have meaning, but sure, okay. But now the pre it's done, other than whatever morning we're gonna get before they go see Jeff. So I think it is a good time to assess. Are people right? Is this a dull pre-merge? Is it particularly stand out as such thus it's worth both mentioning it in your first line of your description of Cook Islands and dropping it down on your list several reasons. And since I ranted a while, I will let anybody else share their opinion first.
I'll say, as someone who hasn't seen it since it aired, some of the players have been like complete blanks, but the actual like show and narrative and everything going on around that has been a lot better than I remember it to be. Like, I've tried to rewatch the season a couple times over the years and I never got past the Billy love confessional, but now I'm glad I pushed through it. So I've been enjoying myself.
Yeah, no, the fact is, like, this is a good pre-merge. It's not just that it's not a bad one, it's a good one. Look, everyone's like, okay, well, after the mutiny it gets good. But what the mutiny sets the entire the rest of the season up, and that carries forward until the end of the show. So it makes even the more boring post-merge votes interesting because of what happened in the mutiny. So you don't just have that, but then you do have some fun votes before that. You have the cowboy stuff. You have the Billy vote. There are really good moments before that too. I think there are one, maybe two dull episodes, but that's really standard. Like that, show me a season that isn't like heroes versus villains or winners at war that doesn't have a dull episode pre-merge. Like, it's
maybe even winners at war.
Yeah, that's fair. Actually, I'm now thinking of one now that I said that. But no, the point is, like, I think there's a lot less flab to this season than people frequently criticize it for.
Yeah, like I think there are maybe there are a few like pre-merge boots who aren't that exciting, but like the episode where Cecilia goes is still like interesting because it's a real turning point, and you have the swap and stuff like that. I think that it's possible that's more interesting on a rewatch because we know how critical Becky not going home there is in a way that's like not going to play to other people, but you're still already rooting for Yul at that point, and you know that he's her out. They're allies together. And, but yeah, like, I think most of the time you're gonna have a pre-merge, or even in good seasons like a post-merge episode, there's going to be an episode or two that aren't that exciting. There's gonna be a few, but I think, yeah, like you mentioned Billy and Cowboy, I think you also have the JP vote is fairly interesting. And then couple that with the mutiny and this episode, and then the premiere I think is solid. It's fine. That's 5 episodes, like that's that are like good, and then others that are probably just like fine, you know, still have maybe that character who got voted out isn't the most exciting, but don't we want those people voted out, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, what I was going to say is, like, you know, in many ways, the most boring vote of the pre-merge, and especially the pre-mutiny, is the Christina vote. But that happens in the same episode that Cowboy gets voted out, which is one of like the best votes out of that happens before the mutiny.
Yeah.
Maybe Flicka. I just don't understand. Like, I could see he's not like liking it as much as I do. I say I liked it the first time around, and I'm still enjoying it now. But like, I was kind of instantly a fan of Yul Kwan. So him being a feature character and like, you know, clearly positioning himself to succeed in the pre-merge made me, you know, interested throughout, right? So if that's not your wavelength, okay. What I can't understand second time watching through, you know, being cognizant to watch for this, although also being somebody not necessarily inclined to change my mind, especially on stated Survivor opinions. But still, I was good, like, at least try to see what people are saying. I just don't see why anybody thinks this is like it stands out as a poor pre-merge. Like, I'll accept that it's an average pre-merge. I don't agree because, like, again, one of the most exciting events in the history of the game happened in pre-merge. Even if you don't want to think of it as pre-merge, it happened. And it didn't just like happen out of nowhere. The story that emerges from the mutiny is seeded in the episodes before. It's almost like storylines can like happen throughout that don't involve you know, somebody who you can stand being voted out as a result. But yeah, I just don't understand how like that is like, I don't like Cook Islands because I don't like the pre-merge. It's like, it's just a pre-merge for the most part. Is just, that's what happens on Survivor. You have 2 tribes and then they do their challenges and compete, and each of them, you know, vote out people, and then they come together. That's how the format of the show works. Like, nothing really stands out to me as particularly bad. So
the one thing I will say, my one criticism of this pre-merge is it's 10 episodes, which feels like more episodes than usual. But the thing is, I'm saying that I haven't actually done the research. I'm not sure if that's actually true. Frankly, I could be talking out of my butt when I'm saying that. So
I suspect it's true. And that actually could be a big part of it, is that this was the longest pre-merge at the time. And so maybe just from the rhythms, if the, you know, again, I don't know if this reputation for it, you know, being boring for that reason bore out through, you know, people's natural cycling through, or if it's borne out for rewatch culture or whatever. But if that's the case, then I could see people just getting antsy for the merge because of their natural Survivor rhythms as a viewer. But for me, I was like, when I was first watching, I was like, don't merge yet, don't merge yet, don't merge. Like, I needed time. Like, once that mutiny happened, I need you to get rid of more people on the Raro tribe. Please, please, please do not merge before my beloved Yul has a chance. Which of course is what happened. So yeah, I you know what, we actually did not talk about a major part of this episode. We'll have to go back to, but yeah, I don't understand now watching it again. I don't understand how that is. I can understand being like, it's just a pre-merge. Like, and if that's your like standout for keeping it out of your top 5 or even top 10 at this point, there's a lot of Survivor seasons. There's a lot of things to like. I get that. But to call it out as, yeah, Cook Islands isn't that great, the pre-merge sucks. It's like, they're clearly people who focus on things differently than I. And I know we had one commenter point this out. I also can't this is that some people, especially like super fan types, really like to glom on to like minor characters. It's a way of separating yourself as a fan. You know, anybody can like the big characters, but the true fans know, well, like the true stars was this 5th boot here. And if that's the type of person you are, and I mean, I'm saying it in a negative way, I'm trying not to judge you. That's the kind of fan I was, not for Survivor, but for other things in my life. Back when like proving bona fides was important. I'm too old to care about that now, so now I just cheer for the biggest overdogs ever.
I like Boston Rob and the Lakers.
Exactly. You know what? I was actually going to pull out that exact example. If you're that kind of person, then yeah, I guess Cook Islands really does have almost nothing for you, because even like somebody like Billy or Cowboy are too obvious for that. Like, yeah, there's nothing there if you're trying to find your cult hero or your stan or your robbed goddess. I just don't watch Survivor like that, so I can't understand. Give me the characters that matter. Give me the people that are good.
Yep. Right. So I actually just looked it up. I did the research after I said the thing because that's the way we work here. Most it seems like most merges are like 7 to 8 episodes, and this is 10. So that is actually
and there's a
lot
clip
longer.
show pre-merge.
Yeah, but there was always a clip show.
Yeah,
there were pretty frequent clip shows. So even without the clip
show, it was on Thanksgiving.
Right. So even without the clip show, like this is still at least one episode longer than any other, and usually 2. So that is a big difference.
So the thing about this episode that we should probably talk about is, did the show rig it by giving him that scroll? Because that is a conspiracy theory.
I mean, I know they wouldn't, but I kept my eye out for anywhere where they could have hidden another bottle.
Swap them up.
Yeah, swap the bottle.
I didn't see anything. It looked like it was just it wasn't a shelf type situation.
Yeah, it was just it was like a stool. there was no lectern.
Where there's no space. And she just stands behind his back at any time. But I do really wonder. I mean, I wonder if it's did they just take the big risk? And Andy mentioning earlier that they, chose challenges that seemed more likely for Aitu to do well on. And the other thing, I don't think I had thought of when before rewatching, when this is discussed a lot in the fandom, right? It's one that's mentioned, but forgot that this is the first. Did we determine it's the first 20-person season? Aside from Palau, but that doesn't count. Yeah. But Palau's whatever, and that they don't know how to pace that yet.
Yep. That's right.
And now they do, and we're used to it, and it's fine. But yeah, that I think we're really we gotta figure out how to get rid of another person. So let's do that.
Now, I think they took the chance. Is my opinion.
I agree.
I think they took the chance because here's my thinking on it. If Aitu loses and the 4 people go to tribal council, they would have been down 6-3 at a merge. So, or not my fault, 7-3 at a merge. 7th. Well, it would have been 6.
2. 4 minus 2 is 2.
Right, no, but I'm talking about the 1 vote so far. I'm not talking about the second vote. Let's just say they vote out 1 person. They're already down by a huge number at the merge. They might just think, hey, let's speed up the pagonging. Yeah. If they have to vote out 2 people here, then that speeds up the pagonging. They're already out of it. Whereas if the other side has to vote out 2 people, we got a really interesting merge.
Also,
so
you're still going to have Yule, possibly with an idol if they don't target him. And then there's a chance, it's curious how it would have gone, depending on who they, vote first. Because Yule, I mean, it might have been Ozzy. Ozzy might have gone out, or would Yule have been no, we have to, deal with the challenge or something. But in there, maybe they don't even realize how close Yule and Becky really are, and think well, then it'll just be Ozzy and Yule versus the world.
No, I think it would have been Yule and Becky coming out of that.
Yeah, it would have. But
she's just wondering, is that it is obvious to Sandra and Ozzy as it is to everybody else? My guess is that it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll say this because I'm not somebody who is prone to conspiracy theories, especially in fan communities. It's almost always just people making excuses for their favorites not doing well, or just the products of wild imaginations. I get it. I get why because the show was skating on the thinnest of ice as the way that the season went, and I think it's been reported, not even just rumored. I think Entertainment Weekly guy reported that there was real doubt of whether they could air this season. If it was going to go the way it looked like it was going, the way it looks like it's going now, we can't put this on TV. We are out here wasting our fucking time. When we're gonna have a
I'm
gap
so
in
glad that they had the presence of mind to not because this is the same, well, maybe not the exact same, but the same production team that's we handled that issue in 39 perfectly.
I mean, hey, they kicked the guy out, right? So I understand why you think the fix was in, because they had every motivation in the world to fix this. They had to because they broke it. They made this mistake, and all of their worst nightmares are happening. But like, just like Emily, I'm watching to see how it'd be easy if you know, oh look at that, here's your bottle. But
right, like it would totally be easy, yeah.
But like, as I said, there was going to be a double boot at some point. This is not the point in Survivor where they're going to like backload that final. Like it's like probably another like 10 years before they will have like a 3 boot final episode. So there was going to be one anyway. This makes as much sense as anything. It makes sense why they would delay a merge the way they kept delaying it. The other thing is, if there was another bottle, if there was something in case Aitu loses, what is it? You know, what, you know, because like I can't, you know, everything that Raro came up with was bullshit, dumb, fitting with who they are. Oh, we're going to lose and then we'll get a reward.
And then we'll get to merge.
Yeah, it's like they don't do that. They don't need to tell you now that it's a merge. That's a scene for tomorrow. That's a scene that's like on the board of the season. Okay,
like that could have worked in Borneo when like, they didn't know that was like a concept, and it's like now you're one tribe, but it's like
like all it could be would be like I think it'd be something like you get to somebody gets to spy on something, or like like unroll it and you get to other tribe will choose one of you to get one exile island or something to get immunity, like it's happened. But like you have to come up with a thing because there had to have been a thing. He announced this beforehand. Here's a bottle, and as Matt says, any loss by Aitu basically fucks it anyway. So really, just doubling down isn't a big deal. Now, what I will buy is maybe that they came up with that idea on the spot.
Yes, that I buy. That I buy. They came up with that right beforehand. That was a late addition.
Because again, I do believe it's been like reported that Final 3...
talk about those wax drippings.
Final 3 was a late stage addition. I do not believe they started Cook Islands with a Final 2 in motion. That was like, well, we know Yule's idol is good till then, so we can guarantee one non-white finalist, or hopefully guarantee. Obviously, Plan Voodoo could take out that idol at some point. Respect. So, like, I get the conspiracy theory. I'm not Pollyannish enough to believe that Survivor would want to, but as I said earlier, maybe they just moved a challenge ahead. So, and that's where they put their thumb on the scale, and just like, we'll put enough that if it goes this way, we'll be okay. And if it goes the other way, well, we were fucked anyway.
Yeah.
But I think even from a narrative perspective, like I think it could have worked out for them. I mean, they were just coming off of Palau recently. If Yule and Becky are the two who survived from Aitu, you have a guy with an idol.
And Denise it to the end.
Right. And can they do it? Like, we have this great story, these 2 people against 7.
They ain't breaking up the white people. They ain't breaking up the white people.
Of course, and the optics would be horrible.
But in this case,
I
they wouldn't have voted out Jenny and Rebecca.
Right. So there's a chance you could still configure.
Right. Yeah. Jenny's going to side with them after she's so like,
if she starts to pick up on enough with the Candace thing.
But they would have gone to tribal, so I don't think that would have happened. Anyway, should we talk about our recurring segments? What our viewing partners have thought about this season so far. Mark, you haven't been on yet. You're watching with someone that's new to Survivor, right?
Yeah, well, she's new to this season. We've watched a lot of Survivor over the last couple of years. But this is fun for her because this is the first Parvati episode, or Parvati season, the first Penner season. Ozzy, she kind of knows as this asshole from, his later performances, and then she loves Penner because Philippines was our first season together. I started her off in Philippines, so this has been really fun. Great. Like, oh, this person, that person. She kind of knows Candace from Heroes versus Villains, but she's really enjoying it.
Although is she now wondering why Candace was a hero?
Yes, exactly.
I truly cannot wait to share that information. I know I've said that before, but I'm just...
No, it's good stuff. It's good stuff.
I haven't told her why she's a hero, though. So she's just like, that? Really? is the mutiny why she was a hero? But
my reaction to the heroes versus villains cast, which was probably like a week before, because it wasn't like on the internet. It might have been like published in like a literal TV guide or something. Although I wouldn't know why I would have that. Maybe my mom had it. I wasn't living at home, so I don't know how I found this out. But like I got it somehow.
We really need to pin that down.
Andy, it was 2010. It wasn't before the internet existed.
I did not have a home computer until like my final year.
Look, let's really pin this down. I need to know exactly when, where he was, how he found this out.
This is really important.
That is the most important thing we're talking about.
Let's take all the time we need. Actually, I was because I was setting up my very first Survivor pool at work, and that's how I got the information. I was like, okay, wait, Danielle? Oh yeah, okay, yeah, finalist. I got it. Candace, and I'm like, wait, Hero? Like, because I remember who he was, and I was like, oh yeah, like at the time of Micronesia, she felt like somebody who could have came back. Like at the end of the season, she is a featured character. Makes complete sense. But like for one, among that cast, she's not a top 20 in the first 20 seasons of Survivor. But then Hero, I was actually pissed. I know a lot of other people are pissed that Parvati is a villain. I have no problem with that at all.
She earned it in Micronesia.
Well, she earned it this season. Like her whole like aesthetic. Obviously, now we can celebrate and look past it. But it's like, a Black Widow is not a hero until the Avengers made it popular. So
it's really fun for me because my partner is like a super big fan of Parvati, so she's like, she's gonna come alive in the merge. Like, this is where she makes her name, and I'm just like, oh no.
More on that in a moment.
Yeah.
Anyway, I guess this is also talking about the returnees section.
Yeah.
We can do that all together.
Yeah. But Mark, any other thoughts?
So I did ask her, like, who are you liking that you haven't seen before? And she picked out Nate and Becky. She thinks Becky's going to be a big player. And then she really likes Nate. He's super likable. So next week's going to crush her dreams.
Yeah.
The fun part is, though, and this ties into our previous discussion, is that because she's gotten pretty good at it reading. This is our like 10th or 12th season of Survivor. And so she's predicting that the season is going to end, that Aitu is going to team up with Nate, and all the minorities are going to take out the white people. Like as a final five.
So close.
So close. So
they don't need that fifth.
Yeah.
I'm gonna enjoy watching her.
She's gonna like panic after next week.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Then it'll settle in.
She panicked last week during the fourth. She's like, they have to make it through. And obviously she knows Joel wins. So.
Right.
Yeah. Andy, what about your viewing partner? Does she remember anything about this episode?
Actually, I'm glad you brought this up because there's some heat going on in this house. All right, so every week we talk about how my wife, despite having watched all these seasons every season, like Africa on with me as it airs, other than South Pacific, because our first child was born and it was just too hard to find the time for her.
Yeah, of all the seasons,
I know. Terrible season. Well, like she was trying to, and I'm like, you know what? It's really not worth it. The season isn't that good. Because like I had to watch the day of to avoid spoilers the next day due to my like internet habits, because I know
that was the first season I went on AB Club.
Anyway,
together.
So we make the jokes here, and my wife is like, you keep making me sound so stupid, because she listens to the podcast unlike any of your other viewer partners, and I need to reassure her, and you guys can help me here, that it is not stupid to forget things that happened on a reality TV show over a decade ago. That is normal.
I forgot.
We are the freaks.
I didn't, but I'm strange.
And Andy, not even all of us are the freaks, because I forget stuff that we're talking about all the time. I forget what we just talked about 5 minutes ago.
I mean,
Andy and I are somehow
One Pearl Island before, like that sort of thing. So I just, this is me stating it publicly. You guys can back me up. It's just like, no, that is what a normal human does. They just they watch things and then they move on with their lives. It's not a healthy thing that I retain so much about this show, which it should be noted has never been my favorite show. So, there's that. One comment you didn't. Yeah. One comment she did make is like she's enjoying like just this process of rewatching because like it is fun because she doesn't remember, you know. If only I could relive like the miracle of the Aitu War again.
I know, right?
The JP vote for me was legitimately surprising because I blocked out most of that pre-merge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love how of the like PRP crew. Hopefully you cannot hear the noise my neighbor is making. If you can, I apologize. No, it's okay. You're just lucky it's not my old neighbors. But so Andy and I are the only people in the PRP crew who started watching from the beginning and like just watched it straight through without stopping, and also the ones who just remember everything. Why is my brain like this?
Yep. No,
like,
it's
what am I losing by retaining this? It's really important stuff because like my wife has an important job. I have a bullshit job. So like maybe that's
it. I think that's what it is I could not have a less essential job.
You really could, even compared to me.
Right. But those of you who know he's not wrong. But it's fine. I have great benefits. I have the best I've ever had. It's great.
It's a thing that makes you money. That's all you need to work.
They gave us the day off during the Capitol riots because they're like, that seems stressful. Just don't work. I'm like, thanks. It is.
Good vibes there, honestly.
Yeah.
I'm dating a teacher, so I feel you, Andy.
Yeah, of like your job not mattering. Yeah, at least my husband's job also it's like harder, but it's not like it's like important to the world. But yeah, I have mentioned this to you guys, but I don't think on the podcast, but I did tweet about it. So some of you listening will know this, but my brother completely betrayed me and started showing his daughter, my niece, Survivor, and they started with season 40, and he didn't even tell me they did it. And just shattered my heart. But also
like not live. Like they had the opportunity.
They had the option. They had the option. But I bring this up to say that he texted me during when spoilers for Winners at War, but who's listening to this who didn't watch that? Texted me to talk about Denise's idol play, and he's like, I don't understand what Sandra is going for. And so I sort of like explained what was going on in the plan and who did what. And he's like, oh wow, like good recall and all of that. And I'm like, bro, that was 3 months ago.
I can tell you the other plays that Sandra has made.
Yeah, right? Like, but I mean, the very fact that I got upset about his complete and utter betrayal, my niece, who is 11, said on the call, I was like, this is why we didn't tell her. So, he has some idea of the official, like he's watched some of it. He was actually the one who watched it first. He was a teenager, like watching it in the room, and I saw about it. And then my mom and I always have watched it, and he like stopped for a while. So he knows my mom and I are really into it, but it was just such a betrayal. The moral of that story, though, is that I retain useless pop culture knowledge. If ever on Jeopardy it's a TV category, I'm like, fuck yeah. Oh, I haven't even seen all these series finales, but I know them all.
Right. Yeah, no, right. The moral of the story is let Andy off the couch. That's the moral of the story there. So, yes. Emma, what's your viewing partner thinking so far?
Yeah, so very funny what Mark brought up, because my poor husband, who is, not white, as we've talked about here, and that is, crucial just for how one views this season, is convinced now that a white person must win because of the way Raro has voted, which is fair. But I think what's funny is it's particularly because I'm such a Parvati fan, and because he is patient and kind. He has heard me mention Parvati many, many times. And he has heard we have a mutual friend, a friend of mine, friend of the podcast, Chelsea, introduced us, who is also a Parvati fan, as any female Survivor player of our age bracket is. And so he has heard us talk about her together while he's just like, oh my God, what is wrong with these two? So he knows that she is a big deal and a big deal to me. So he is like, sort of like how Mark was saying, that his dream partner was like, oh, after the merge, something must kick it. So he's like, she must do something that's like exciting. And now he knows like he can tell just from the edit, there's no way Adam's winning, there's no way Candace is winning, there's no way Jonathan's winning. But he's like, but it must be a white person, and so it must be Parvati. And I'm like a little insulted that he thinks that would be that happy for a white person to win this season, but that's fine. You know,
I mean, she's also the least objectionable of the white.
This is true. This is true. And so it's like, who knows? Maybe she like teamed up with him in the end. But yeah. So, and he's like, I mean, I'm still rooting for Yul. So like, he's just like very dejected. And so I'm just like,
it's just gonna make it all so much better.
It's gonna make it so much better.
Simple and pure storyline. I fucking love this season. I'm so glad.
It's gonna be so great. I'm just so excited for him.
Yeah. Meanwhile, my viewing partner is basically, she's like fist pumping every time Aitu wins a challenge. She's like, yes, I just want them to win, and she is not that type of person, which is very amusing.
Also, he hates Candace now. So.
I was gonna say,
not that hard.
And I was gonna say,
I really can't wait to drop that hero thing. It's so funny.
Yeah. And then the funny thing was, she, at the end of this episode, she's like, I now have like, my favorites, I've actually kind of come around on, and like in this episode, she's like, I kind of like Jonathan again, because, but she's like really hard rooting for those Aitu 4. And she's like, God, I hate Candace and Adam. And I'm like, you get it. That's all you need to know for this season. That's it. The amazing thing was she totally called the bottle twist. I asked her, I was like, what do you think?
Yeah, that's astounding. What she has predicted is like frightening.
Yeah. She's like, what do you think's in there? She's like, oh, I don't know. It could be this. It could be this. She's like, oh, I bet they're going to have to, I bet like the person with the second most votes is going to get voted off. And I was like, oh, really? And she's like, yeah. Or maybe they'll just vote for someone else again. And I'm like, oh. Okay.
What an interesting thought.
I can't see it. And then like they're there. It's like it's like Jeff's like, what do you think's in here? And they're saying, and she's like, why would you say that? That doesn't make sense. And then when it's revealed to be what it is, they're like, why didn't you think of this? This was so simple. This was so obvious.
Yeah. My big party, he actually had a decent idea, which was that the person who got voted out would just go to Aitu, would go to the other side, which I think makes sense with like mutiny. And also none of us will know, but commenters, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure it happens in Survivor Australia at least once. I muting hashtags has just stopped working for me, so these things just show up in my feed.
That was the thing I thought of when I was trying to think of what else the note could be. That was what I thought of. If you're giving Aitu something, is that you're going over there. The person isn't being voted out, but I don't know why you would do that in a 20-person season. That like, okay, we are actually having a non-elimination episode. No,
and like right before the merge, and of course, like he, like we've watched seasons and they've all been, smaller cast than that, but like after watching like 5 and a couple, it was like you're not thinking about that level of the metagame. Right. So I definitely am not like, you fool, there's 20 people.
It's better than anything that Raro came up with, at least that they would share with probes. It's possible, honestly, that they did come up with what if it's
right, and they don't want to show
I kind of think they did,
which explains why 4 people voted one way,
right?
Yeah, exactly. Any new thoughts on the returnees that we haven't hit before? We're kind of going long, so I mean, we've been talking about them all this time.
Well, I mean, I think Mark could possibly have new thoughts in that he's never shared any. So,
the ones who have come back, I mean, this is pretty standard. I'm not seeing any new revelations. I'm surprised that some of the other people haven't come back, but I guess that's just scheduling. Like, I guess Flicka made an impression.
Like the only person for me, Becky, but I love the idea that Becky is too good to come back to Survivor. It's like, I've moved on with my life, and actually it's a little sad that other people do. Like that's where I have in my head. I don't know if she's ever been invited, but in my mind,
that's probably where Yul was until Winners of War too. Like, because I think she's pretty. Like, isn't she like a fairly successful civil rights attorney or something?
Sounds right.
Something like
I feel
that.
like I've seen that.
No, that's like they've asked Yul. Like that wasn't the first time they ever asked him, and he's kind of like, no. Like, frankly, it was weird that I went on the first time. But yeah, like for me, there's nobody else. Like if they somehow noticed and said, "Oh, we brought back Becky," I'd be like, "Oh man, that's awesome." But for me, there's nobody else from this season. I really feel like Frankly, I'm just like, bring Penner back again. I don't care.
I mean, I think there's some people that could have been more interesting had they been brought back like sooner.
Yeah.
Right.
Like had you brought back like Cowboy in, like a couple of seasons after this, I think he could have been pretty interesting because he's just kind of like a weird, interesting dude. He probably would have gone home really quick though. Like, I think Jenny could have been interesting if you brought her back pretty soon. And maybe Nate too, but we'll discuss that more.
I was gonna say Nate, but
yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think like most of those people, their expiration date has passed, and it's like they weren't bringing people back as often in those seasons as they are now. Like nowadays, you might bring those people back because you're having a returnee season every couple seasons, whereas the next one was there were only 10 returnees, and then you didn't want to bring them. You didn't want to bring back anyone who wasn't Dynamite because you're heroes versus villains.
Yeah.
And still,
so the whole middle era of people like has a ton of people that just fell through the cracks and will never come back because it's not the peak of Survivor viewing, so they don't get the same nostalgia reach back as we saw in the vote in the time they let us vote, and then as you say, it was such gaps in between and such tight like Ozzy couldn't fit on the Heroes versus Villains cast. That's how stacked it was. Was he could they view him as a hero even though he was a dick in Micronesia, but he wasn't cracking that top 5. So
how pissed do you think Parvati would have been if Ozzy was on the Heroes Tribe and she's on Villains? I mean, she already yelled at James a little bit for being on it. I think she and Courtney were both like, "You're on the wrong tribe."
Yeah, you could have switched James over there instead of Randy and put Ozzy on the Heroes or whatever. And
I don't know. I think after Heroes versus Villains, you can move James.
Right. I think at the time, like the viewing audience is still seeing James. It's sort of like how and he's there for China more than Micronesia. The way that Stephanie is a hero for Palau and definitely not for Guatemala.
Oh, because no one exists from Guatemala.
Even I don't remember Guatemala, and we remember everything.
Okay.
Mark, anything else about how are you feeling about Ozzy this season? Because I'm sure you're like most of us, we don't like Ozzy, but this is a different Ozzy.
Yeah, no, I'm actually really liking Ozzy, and it kind of feeds into I loved Ozzy when I first saw this season. Like I was a huge Ozzy and Yule stan back in the day, and then obviously as time went on, we became less and less enamored of him. But I'm really liking him. But I think he plays well as an underdog. Like I think he gets too full of himself in later seasons. He's too good at challenges.
Yeah. Unless he's a whiny underdog, post merge, South Pacific Ozzy. Oh, well, I guess I'm just all on my own. But you're early. I agree.
And he's younger too. He's more naive and full of, I don't want to say energy because he clearly has enough energy to be a crazy Fisher person, even when he was in Game Changers. But
plus he has all those white people to fight against.
Exactly. No, Ozzy stood out. I still like him. Like I said, Nate was standing out, but you guys reminded me that doesn't end well. And that's it. It's the only big changes.
Apparently, Parvati is big into mnemonic devices. Who knew? little island trick. That's the big. I think that's the big Parvati moment.
That's the big Parvati moment. Yeah.
Look, I think we're all underrating, and we're not there yet. But she does have a pretty big post-merge moment.
She does. So next week we'll be watching one episode. It's the merge episode. So there should be a lot to talk about. It'll be a good one. You can see everyone dancing on camera right now. Emma, where can they find us?
They can find us at www.purplerockpodcast.com, but you probably don't need to actually write the www because it's 2021. You can follow the show account on Twitter at Purple Rock Pod. You can follow me at Purple Rock Emma. You can follow Andy at Purple Rock Andy. And if you feel like following people who don't tweet very much, you can also follow at Purple Rock Matt and at Purple Rock Mark.
I thought that was Purple Rock Mank.
No, that was the.
Oh, yes. And to anyone who maybe doesn't check Twitter or the website very often, we did do it's the most wonderful time of the year. We did our annual Make John Guess What Oscar Movies Are About.
Based on their names.
This is a great year for it. We had some good times.
We laughed, cried, mostly just laughed. I don't think we actually cried.
Well, Matt probably cried because Matt always cries, and it's available on the website.
Yeah, one of John's descriptions just really hit the right spot for Matt.
I mean, some of those descriptions sound like really good movies. I want to make those. Anyway,
subscribe to the podcast in the various ways, including Spotify. If you don't know that we're there, we're there.
Yes,
yeah, but you're listening to the podcast now. Figure it out.
Maybe you like Spotify better or something. You can now do that, whereas you couldn't before.
Hit that theme music.